Hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome back to the Caleb Knits podcast for episode 4. Today is March 21st, 2020. Coming at you from my house, and we'll talk about that later. If you're watching this presently, you know why that's important. But I just want to welcome you back. After a brief hiatus, I'm thrilled to be podcasting. I took my last cycle off because I was just really grumpy and didn't feel like being on the internet. So, glad that was resolved. Now I'm a little, feeling a little bit of different emotions today, but we'll talk about that later. Just up front, just so you know, this is a swearing-friendly podcast. So while I try to always say things that are kind, I might not always say things that would be dubbed appropriate by the Federal Communications and Censorship, whatever, the FCC. So, just so you know, I do occasionally swear. I try to keep it in control, but it's part of my vernacular, so sometimes it slips out. Right. So, I want to go ahead and just get the elephant out of the room, or address the elephant in the room. I am currently self-isolating. For those of you who might be watching this in the future, using this as a primary source maybe in your history study groups, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. So currently in the United States, and across the world really, there has been an outbreak of a virus called COVID-19, more commonly referred to as the coronavirus. And we have been encouraged to practice social distancing and, if you feel necessary, self-isolate. For the most part, I am self-isolating. I really have not left my house other than one grocery run when I realized that we were going to be here a while. And I do go in and check in on my parents every so often. It is super important. If you are watching this presently, I encourage you to do the same. You know, we hear so much about flattening the curve, but really that is how things like this statistically will stop. So, yeah, if you're having to go to work, I thank you for working in an area of our economy and in our society that is deemed necessary. Places like grocery stores, healthcare providers, healthcare workers, y'all the real MVPs. So thank you for what you do, and I'm doing my part by staying home and knitting. Shucks. Right now in Ford County, Kansas, where I live, there's been one confirmed case, and it's been in the city where I live. However, it was what's called a traveling case. So that means that the person came in from out of county, was tested at our hospital, and then was quarantined after they tested positive. And I'm not going to get into it. As my sweater proclaims, policy is my love language. I get really into policy, the way that it affects people, the way that we can use it to better our lives. And this whole pandemic has been a real eye-opener to me for our need for more rural infrastructure. For example, this person came in from out of county because their county could not take care of them, because they're a more rural county. And because of that, our hospital has basically gone on lockdown. Our medical professionals in our community have had to quarantine, and that has a large effect on people. If the handful of doctors in town and in a large radius of the state, of this portion of the state, can't work because they're quarantined, because we didn't have the resources, or first of all, the people who came in didn't have the resources to be tested in their own home or in their own county. Now another community is suffering because of it. There haven't been any other confirmed cases here in our county, but it is a bit of an anomaly out here in western Kansas. Most of the cases in Kansas have been in the Kansas City area, which is about 300 miles away. So it's just a little weird. I don't want to doom and gloom. I don't want to talk about this much, but it's a part of our lives now. It's a part of our existence, and so because of that, I'm going to talk about it. For example, I have what I call a COVID cast on, and I'm sure many of you do too. So, it's just part of our lives now. So, while I'm going to try to not talk about it, it may slip in. So anyway, I haven't done this in a while. Haven't written show notes. Don't know where my show notes book is. So let's just get started with finished objects, huh? First finished object that I actually don't have with me. If you remember, I was knitting my second The Snuggle is Real cowl by Maxim Sear, and I'll pop a picture of my finished object up here. So this was actually a commission that I did for a very dear friend of mine, who is currently now homeschooling their kindergartner. So more power to you. That's another reality of COVID that we'll talk about later in the end of our podcast today. But anyway, The Snuggle is Real cowl by Maxim Sear. I love this pattern. I'm a little burnt out on it right now because I've now made two. I made one for myself and I made one for my friend. But I love the way that this one turned out. It was knit out of a mixture of Knit Picks Swish DK. Swish or, oh no, Gloss? I think it was Knit Picks Gloss DK. It's the silk merino one. So I think Swish has cotton in it. I'll put the information down here, but it is knit out of a light blue and a dark blue for the mosaic part, and then the inside was a hand-dyed mohair fingering weight that I held double to create the lining, and it is a colorway from Dyed by Dells, or Yarn by Dells, which is Vincent Delisson, who also has the Design by Dells. He does designs in the Pepper's Mint colorway. So it was just a really nice, the colors were just really, I kind of have to pat myself on the back for picking out that combination. I apologize for the glare on my glasses. It's best for me to podcast with the lights off and the blinds open. So that means I sit in front of the window and there's a glare on my glasses. But anyway, just gonna have to deal with it. So that was a really enjoyable knit. One thing I did differently is in the cowl portion of the knit, the mosaic part, I switched the color placement. So in the pattern, the light blue is supposed to be the background color where the dark blue pops. I liked the idea of having a cohesive cowl with just blips of color, and the friend liked that as well. So that's what we went with. And I did not buy yarn appropriately. I bought enough yarn for what was recommended in the pattern, excuse me, but because I didn't account for that I would not be using a lot of the light and I would be using more of the dark than I thought I would, I had to cut it a little short. But that's okay, it was still a decent sized cowl. It's still blocked out nice and lovely, and the recipient loves it. So that was my Snuggle is Real cowl. So this is a whip that I was afraid was going to become a languishing work in progress. However, I have found a second wind with it, and I am so close to finishing now that I'm sure it will be done in the next few days, or basically by the next time I podcast. So, living in one of my favorite fat squirrel bags, Amy Beth, amazing human. If you're at home, self-isolating or quarantine like I am, podcasts are a wonderful source of solidarity, of feeling like you're a part of something while you're kind of by yourself. So Amy Beth is a great podcast to watch. I'm going to do a jump cut real quick so that I can show you this on a hanger. So this is my Winterfjell cardigan now, by Skandir Knits. This, if you'll recognize, has been steeked, which was such an easy experience. I encourage everybody to do it. So that means I basically reinforced some of my knitting with a very fine crochet hook and then cut this sucker open. So I'll get a little bit closer, squeaky chair alert. Yeah, so you can see where I've reinforced my knitting. You can also see where I've woven some of my ends. Oh, there's the mailman. He's gonna think I'm so weird. That's okay. He's delivered some weird packages for me, so he's fine. All right, and we're back. I had to do a quick chat with my mailman about deliveries going forward. So anyway, meantime, I put on some Tuft Woolens hand cream in the lavender apple scent. Are you gonna focus? Does this even work on cameras like this? Anyway, favorite scent. Martha is one of my favorite humans again. Yeah, love her. Anyway, and this was in that project bag, and this project smells like that because I've been using it as I go. So I was talking about my Winterfjell and how I installed the steek and then cut it open. So there's that. You can see my floats. I'm rather proud of them. This is a pattern by Skandir Knits. I knit it out of Holsgarn Super Soft, which I'm saying it's a lace weight. I think it is. I mean, 50 grams for 315 meters. That's a very light fingering for a lace weight. So this is a Danish yarn, dirt cheap, y'all. And it's quality as well. Like, I think by me saying dirt cheap, that implies that it's like bad, but no, it is amazing wool. It's a woolly wool, but it's been a joy to work with. If you notice, I don't really have any ends that I've had to weave in because you can just lick your palm, add some friction, and it's spliced together. Wool is amazing like that. So I'll show you the back. Now, with this pattern, I've had to alter a few things, which is totally fine. I anticipate that most of the sweaters that I knit need to be altered because of my body. My body is a big body, and while we're getting better about being inclusive size-wise in our knitting community, that doesn't mean that my body is proportionate, okay? So I have large deposits of fat on my back. That's just how my body is. And so therefore I need just a little bit more fabric in the back to accommodate for that. And that's something that I've learned through this sweater. So this sweater, I'm on the first sleeve, by the way. When I put it on right now, it looks a little weird on my body. I'm finding that maybe a circular yoke isn't the best shape for me, just because of the way that increases are distributed in the back. I mean, you just distribute in a circle. So because of that, because of the spacing, I think this is all hypothetical. This is just me theorizing. I think because of the way that the increases are spaced along the back, it makes for a very kind of ruffled look on the back, because my body is kind of shaped like, here's my back, here's the rest of my back, and then here's my lower back. So I kind of look like a backwards question mark, I guess, or like half of a light bulb. So when the fabric comes off of this round part of my body, the rest of the sweater just kind of hangs here, and there's all of this space in between the sweater and my lower back. So I'm trying to think of ways to accommodate for that in my next sweater. I'm thinking it might be a combination of like bust starts and short rows. Amy Beth, the Fat Squirrel, has a video on her YouTube channel about how she adjusts her sweaters, and she is a person with a bigger body as well. So I'm gonna go back and watch that and see how she accommodates for things like that. So yeah, that is that. So yeah, I'm loving the knit. Well, I'm ready for the knit to be done. Because of that, I have kind of rushed the length. So I needed 19 inches from my armpit to the bottom of the sweater. And when I was doing the ribbing, I was like, I am so over this. And so I didn't knit it as long as I needed to. I think I was shooting for 10 rows like I did on the collar, and I got to 6 and said, fuck this. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but the hem, the bottom ribbing is flipping up. And did I know that that would happen? Yeah, I sure did. Did I care? I should have, because now what I'm going to do, by the time I was binding this off, I did not count, but I was well into 650 plus stitches. So I don't want to unpick a binding for 600 plus stitches. Also, I've knit the plackets now, so there's even more stitches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up along the bottom and knit maybe 4 or 5 more rows of ribbing to get that to stay. I thought about maybe doing a crochet chain on the inside to just make it kind of stabilized. I thought about grosgrain ribbon, but I don't want to sew in grosgrain ribbon. And so I'm just gonna go in, and it's at the bottom. If you're that close to my booty, looking at the hem of my sweater, you know, hopefully I invited you that close to my booty. Otherwise, you probably need to back up. So anyway, Vinterfjell by Skandir Knits. Love the pattern. Hopefully by the next time you see it, it'll be on my body. Oh, one more thing about it. I have buttons here for it. These buttons I purchased at Athena Fibers in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's where my grandma lives. And actually a lot of my family lives. But they're just these nice, I don't know what kind of metal they are. Probably aluminum, maybe nickel. They're not heavy, so I don't think they're pewter. But they look really slick on this sweater. So excited for that. All right, next work in progress is what I'm calling my COVID cast on. And as cheeky as that is, I just think it's funny, so we're gonna go with it. I was just super excited to use this bag. So this bag is my latest addition to my collection. Do you notice a theme with me? I love these like blues with just like mustard, blues with color. So anyway, this is another Fat Squirrel bag from Amy Beth, and it is her Aran size sweater bag. So it is a big boy, and I love it. I love the fabric it's made of. I love how sturdy it is, and I love the size of it. So I have a good friend. Her name is Megan. Megan receives a lot of the knits that I want to make. And I'm like, ooh, that is such a beautiful pattern. I just want the experience of knitting it because there's no way in hell I'm gonna knit it for myself. And so Megan receives a lot of knits that I'm like, ooh, I like that. What's your bust size right now? I'm gonna knit it for you. So this played out in a similar fashion. I don't know if it was my last podcast or the podcast, it was my last one, about sustainability and creating a wardrobe that is sustainable. And I talked about this yarn from Knit Picks. It's a special reserve. They just call it wool bulky. But here it is. I talked about it. And this is a bulky yarn. Compared to the Hulskarn, it has been a dream. And what this is this is 100% upcycled wool. And that's all that it says. So I don't know what kind of wool. It's very, very soft. So I'm assuming that there is merino of some sort in here. It does kind of feel like there's stroll sock yarn. But it's also very, it's also very hairy. Oh my God, I have the hiccups. It feels like I'm not sure what kind of wool it is. It feels like there is merino in it because it feels like there's stroll yarn. But I don't know if you can tell in the light, but there is quite a bit of halo to this. So that tells me that it has some fibers in it that are longer staples, which would indicate can you see the length of that? Maybe if I go, nope, don't go in front of the white door. Oh, there, you can kind of see it. It's a long staple. So that indicates that there's probably some Peruvian Highland wool or something in it. But this is, so anyway, I bought the yarn thinking, oh, I could never wear a bulky sweater, but Megan could wear a bulky sweater. So bought the yarn thinking I'll find a sweater to knit Megan. And what we decided on was the Bosco sweater. I apologize, I don't know the designer's name off the top of my head. It'll be right here. But this is the Bosco sweater, and this is what I have so far. I started this on Monday, and I've been working on it intermittently here and there, and I'm already almost to the armpits because this is a cropped sweater for a small person in bulky yarn on big ass needles. I say that these are my Buffy needles because they're like daggers for vampires, right? So anyway, it is a broken rib pattern. And it is, well, I'll put a picture of the pattern up here. It is a drop shoulder, very similar to Caitlin Hunter's Tenya in construction. It's a bottom up, and I'm just really loving it. This wool only has about 57 yards per ball. So even for the smallest size that I'm knitting and not even being up to the armpits yet, I think I'm on my 4th ball of yarn. So I just flipped it inside out real quick so I can show you where all the ends are. So like there's one, there's another, there's one, 2, yeah, 3. So, and then we're on our 4th ball now. So, maybe not the most economical projects are made out of bulky weight yarn because you have to buy a lot of it to make a garment, but I guarantee you the coziest projects are made out of bulky weight yarn because I can just imagine what this is going to be like. So it's in the Verde colorway, and again, that's just wool bulky from Knit Picks in their upcycled special reserve. I'm sure this will be finished by the next time I see you as well. So that's awesome. 2 sweaters are going to be finished. And then I have that brioche artwork that I am kind of like, why did I cast that on? Because is that what I want to be working on? I mean, once I pick it up and start working on it, I'm sure I'll be like, oh, this is amazing. But I also am kind of in a hunker down and knit beautiful, intricate things. Not that that's not beautiful and intricate, but I'll talk about it when it gets here. But I was kind of wallowing about some of the ramifications of our current world. And I ordered a sweater's quantity of Brooklyn Tweed Shelter to knit a Radmere sweater by Michelle Wong. And I don't know, I just have a feeling that that's probably going to be my next cast on. So with a knit along to come. So anyway, that is that. That means that we are going to move on to books. So since we last chatted, I have finished a couple books, picked another book up, and quit reading one. So let's talk about it. The first book I want to talk about is the one that I quit reading. So I was kind of wishy-washy about it in my last 2 podcasts. It just wasn't holding my attention, and it's definitely not what I want to be reading right now. So that book is American Royals by Kristen McGee, I think. If I have that wrong, it'll be correct down here. But it just wasn't holding my attention. It was very childish, and so I didn't really care for it. I'm kind of at that age where YA, I mean, I'm in the, what I really enjoy reading is a genre called New Adult, which is kind of bridging that gap between YA and adult, as far as like point of view of characters, because YA is based around, like a good majority of the genre is based around a young person, usually between the ages of 12 to 17 or 18, finding their purpose, finding themselves. And I'm just past that part in my life. I just had my 25th birthday, so last week. So yeah, I mean, that's not relatable to me anymore. So it's not something that I'm interested in reading. Now, I do think that American Royals skews on the end of young adult, going into new adult. Another way that you can kind of categorize young adult and new adult is kind of the explicitness of the, how do I put this? Of the intimate content. And because it wasn't super explicit in what I read so far, I would categorize American Royals as young adults rather than new adult. But it just wasn't holding my interest. It's not a poorly written book. It's just not for me right now. So I went ahead and DNF'd that, or did not finish, which is too bad. And it's a Kindle edition, so I can't like say, here, I think you'll love this book, and give it to somebody. I guess that's the downside of an e-reader. I'll have to look into if I can return it or not. I doubt it. I've had it for a while, so even if I could, I'm sure I'm past the return time. So I'm just looking at the stack that I have here. Let's talk about ones that I have finished reading, ones that I am currently reading, and what I'm going to read next. So first on the docket was a book that I sang its praises, raps poetically, is that a phrase? That I waxed poetic about, which is The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. And I actually listened to this on an audiobook. Thanks for the recommendation, Laura. I love that app that you pointed me to, Libro FM. It's a way that you can support small businesses in your audiobook purchasing. And they also have some great educator deals. So, but anyway, The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper, it was everything that I needed, everything that I wanted in a book. It was so heartwarming and so sweet. You know, one thing that we talk about a lot in queer literature is it's nice and refreshing to read a book where people are just gay, right? There's no coming out. The story isn't focused around the turmoil or the tumultuousness that comes with being gay sometimes. And these two boys were just living their lives being gay, and it didn't focus around that. Like, the story didn't focus around that, and it was just so refreshing. Like, I read a story about a boy who had a huge social media presence, and his dad became an astronaut, and he kind of got into a fight with a network. And that was the story. The story wasn't, oh, this kid had to move to Texas because his dad was an astronaut from Brooklyn, New York. And I mean, this story could have gone way, way different. I did want to read to you a part of the author's note at the end, and I'm going to try not to cry, but this just kind of summed up my whole feelings about the book. So, okay. So this is from The Gravity of Us, and this is the author's note. I don't own any copyrights to this, so I hope I don't get in trouble. YouTube, please don't hate me. Anyway, so it says, like so many authors, I've always loved reading, from the historical fiction diary series Dear America to the creepy sci-fi Animorph series to, of course, the world of Harry Potter. I couldn't get enough. My tastes were always changing, and by high school, I found myself getting into cozy mysteries, reading all 40 of the Agatha Christie books that were available at my school library in the span of a year. As a quiet, closeted queer kid growing up in a farming village in Ohio, books became my everything. But even in the world of fiction, the safe place I'd built for myself, I never got to see myself in those books. Sure, I could relate to Hermione getting picked on for being a bit of a know-it-all. Yep, I was that kid. I was not. But I never saw a gay boy on the cover of any books. My experience wasn't on the page, and it felt like it never would be. But now there are so many fantastic queer books on the shelves, and I'm so lucky to be able to write the books I'd have needed most as a teen. Thank you for reading. All my best, Phil Stamper. So, as you can tell, I got a little verklempt there, but you know, that just kind of sums up everything that I was talking about this book last time. So, if you have a chance, pick up The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. I started by reading it. I got about halfway through and then picked up the audiobook, and the audiobook was amazing as well. So I encourage you to read that book. Continuing on books that I've read and finished, and I guess gay books, is a graphic novel series, and I haven't finished it yet. It's on my list of things to do today, but it is the Heartstopper series of graphic novels by Alice Oseman, and these are just cute, they're meet-cute stories about. This one is centered around a budding relationship and discovering your own sexuality. It's actually about bisexuality, the discovery of bisexuality in one of the characters. And I've read the first two editions, or first two volumes of this graphic novel series. It's also a webcomic, so you can check it out there. But they're just really cute. They take place in England, so they talk about like their form and their secondary schools, and it's just it's different from what I'm used to here in the United States. There's one more volume, Heartstopper 3, that I'm excited to read. The nice thing about graphic novels is I can get through them very quickly. You know, these are pretty thick books, but I mean, they're graphic novels, so the dialogue is minimum, and a lot of the story comes through the illustrations, which are really, really cute. So, like, you know, they're just really nice. That is that. I'll probably read the third one today while I'm editing this podcast. So yeah, those are the books that I've read. They're very good, very gay. And looking at my pile, I got one more gay book to talk about. So this is the book that I'm currently reading, and I picked this up on a recommendation from a friend, and then didn't read it, and then I was listening to the Books Unbound podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to about books. It's hosted by Ariel and Raylene, and if you have a chance and you love books, I would highly recommend checking them out. But I picked up On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, and this is it's an interesting story. It's told through a letter that a man is writing to his mother, and his mother can't read. So, I think that lends to some of the candidness through it. And I'll just read you part of the synopsis on the back. It says, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous is also a brutally honest exploration of race, class, and masculinity, asking questions central to our American moment, immersed as we are in addiction, violence, and trauma, but undergirded by compassion and tenderness. It is as much about the power of telling one's own story as it is about the obliterating silence of not being heard. So, it's definitely a heavier book than, say, Heartstopper. I mean, the cover just looks kind of sad. But so far it's very good. I'm only about 30 pages in. It's been a little bit crazy, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to sit down and read. I just was flipping through and saw a naughty word. But I'm excited to finish this. I, again, will finish this before the next time I see you, I'm sure. And then, after I finish that, I'm going to read this. I'm just going to show you the cover. Okay? Like, iconic, right? Iconic. So this is The Pisces by Melissa Broder. And I got this for my birthday from my friend Paige. And I have a Goodreads. I'm Caleb9513 on there, I believe, as well. Excuse me. But she went to my Goodreads list and was reading reviews on the books that I had on my want to read list, and she picked this one, and the note that came with it said, "She fucks a fish. I think you'll like it. Happy birthday." So, I think it is something that is just wild enough that it's going to be one of those things that I read and it's like, what the fuck? And why am I reading this? But I'm going to love reading it at the same time. The tagline, or one of the reviews from Entertainment Weekly, says, explosive, erotic, scathingly funny. So this is kind of something that I think that I'll need in the next couple of weeks as we venture into new territory. It even has a group reading guide. Oh my gosh. Should I host a Caleb Knits book club? Would you be interested in that? Should we read The Pisces as our first selection? Tell you what, I am happy to host a book club. If you would like to join me in reading The Pisces, let me know in the comments and I'll set something up so that we can all read this book together, enjoy it, and we can talk about it on Ravelry, or maybe we can do a Google Hangout or something. I don't know. But The Pisces by Melissa Broder. Let me know about that book club. If that sounds like something you would be interested in doing, let me know. So, all right. So I think that brings us to word vomit for this episode. And boy, do I have a lot. So I'm going to take a swig of Diet Coke. Yes, I know it will kill me. But most mornings, my breakfast is a deep breath and a can of Diet Coke. So there you have it. So, like I said, my birthday was this past, well, not this past week, but almost a week and 2 days ago, March 12th. And yeah, little did I know that would be the last time that I got to see my kids. My kids meaning my class as a whole class. So with this whole COVID-19 where I'm not supposed to be touching my face, but I'm sorry, my nose itches. In Kansas, our governor has made the decision to close schools, close the buildings until May 31st, which essentially means no in-school learning for the rest of the year. And that is uncharted territory for most of us, and necessary, but also incredibly sad. This week has been our spring break, was our scheduled spring break. And so I was anticipating going to work on Monday, seeing my kids, and that's not going to happen. So that's upsetting. I am not worried about their learning. They're all brave, capable students. I just worry about my babes, I call them my beebs, or as Moira Rose would call them, my babies. But I work in a Title I school, which means that many of my students receive free and reduced lunch. Many of my students, their parents don't have the resources to cope with a pandemic on this scale. That's just the nature of things. I mean, that's most of Americans right now. And I also have some kids that are just in not great situations. So, I worry about them quite a bit. But we're next week going to be working on a continuous learning plan for our school district. The first thing, and I have to applaud them, the first thing that they figured out was how our kids are going to be fed. And that has been set up, and that's been the first priority put before learning, which I think is wonderful. So kids won't have class next week either, and teachers will be working on a continuous learning plan, either delivered remotely through online tools. Unfortunately for the population of my school, that doesn't really bode. So most likely what we're going to be looking at is probably small group instruction. In Kansas, we're still free to live our lives. We've been encouraged to self-isolate, or we've been strongly encouraged to social distance. Many restaurants aren't open in the lobbies, but they do delivery. But we have been instructed to not meet in groups more than 10. So for me, what that might look like is half of my class comes in the morning. We come in, we do a slapdash day of learning. We disinfect the room, and then my second group comes in that's that next time. But who knows if that could even work, because every other teacher in the building would be doing the same. And then we're also looking at supplemented packet learning, which that just kills my soul, but it's better than nothing. And what I mean supplemented, I mean I would be hosting office hours, where I would be available online, via the phone. It's been really kind of funny. My kids' parents have my phone number, but my kids do not have my phone number. And I'm on an app called TikTok, which is, first of all, a huge time waster, but oh my God, it is so entertaining. The comedy that is coming out of this quarantine is just really quite impressive to me. But anyway, and when it was announced, let's see, it was Tuesday or Wednesday of this past week that it was announced that schools would not be reopening in Kansas. I had so many kids messaging me on TikTok asking me questions. One of my kids, I mean, it was quite an eye-opener to how important I am to them, which is nice, because before spring break, I was not sure that I was going to be able to be a teacher again next year. It has been a very, very, very hard year for me. And, but out of this, it has shown me that I do make a difference. Not to go there. Sorry, I'm getting weird about this. I don't like talking about this kind of stuff. But anyway, so I've been making TikToks with, let me go get them. Hold tight. Okay, I've been making TikToks with my new pal. His name is Earl the squirrel. And yeah, this is what happens when extroverts are relegated to their homes for days on end. We go on Amazon and we buy hand puppet squirrels. So anyway, Earl and I have been communicating necessary information to my students via TikTok, and it's been pretty fun. I'm excited to, as educators, we're always encouraged to be innovative and all that jazz. But this is really some uncharted territory for a lot of us. And so I'm excited to be a part of that, but it's also under some horrific circumstances that we're having to do this. And I am just going to be so disheartened if in August we go back to school and it's the status quo again. I think this is a great opportunity for us to learn what is working for our students, what isn't working for our students, and really, in this country, what role educators and teachers and schools play. I mean, like I said, the first priority of our school district was how are kids getting fed. That shouldn't have to be the role of the school. That shouldn't, and citizens and parents shouldn't have to be in situations where that then has to be the responsibility of the school. And I try really, really, really hard not to really force my political opinion on y'all, but social programs are wonderful things, and economies that are based off of social programs are working for other countries. They're what we're going to have to rely on in this country as we move forward. And so yeah, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there. One thing I do want to talk about that I think is going to be really cool, and one thing that I'm having my students do is in social studies, we talk a lot about primary source documents in 5th grade because we study the American Revolution, we study the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. So, what I've been doing is I journal anyway, but I've relegated a special journal for my self-isolation, my COVID quarantine. And what I'm doing essentially is creating a primary source document for the future, which I think is just really cool. Because we are living through a time right now that really has not been done before. And when historians and scholars and fifth graders in the future learn about the year 2020, I think having primary source documents, like handwritten things, will really be of benefit. So I encourage you to just journal about your day, journal about your thoughts, your worries, your concerns. I've been journaling a lot about my ideas on rural infrastructure. Who knew? Maybe when I become the first gay congressman or representative from Kansas or senator from Kansas, and they learn about me in Kansas history, they'll go back to my COVID quarantine journal and find out about my first inklings of rural infrastructure and how we need to be doing a better job. I don't know. They also will probably read about how I haven't showered for 6 days and I eat nothing but bagels and Diet Coke. So, creating history here, folks. So anyway, I hope you all are doing wonderful. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe I forgot. I have a special thing for you. Okay, so I guess this is where it's going. As I'm practicing social distancing, like I said, the only people I'm really coming into contact with are a handful of friends who we are all being very, very cautious and very, very careful about who we're isolating with and who we're social distancing with. And so a handful of friends and my mom and brother and dad, but mainly my mom. And yesterday I had an opportunity to sit down with her and talk about her knitting. So I'm gonna put that clip in here and then I'll come back and wrap things up. I can't believe I almost forgot. Okay, so here's my clip with Miss Bonnie. Enjoy. All right, so this is the section that we're gonna call Interview with Miss Bonnie.
That's me.
This is Miss Bonnie. This is my mom. I don't know where in the podcast this is going to be, but we are not in the usual location. Where are we?
We are in my living room.
Practicing social distancing. So
I don't know if this is quite 6 feet, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, and this is really the only person I've been in contact with. So if we're both okay, we'll be okay.
Yep.
But the dogs needed and there they went and settled. They needed a new place to be today. This is Baxter. Got him when I was a junior in high school. So anyway, well, Mom, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Tell us what brought you to knitting?
Kind of my fiber art journey.
Yeah.
Ooh, good way to say it.
I guess. Make sure you tell the camera that.
I know. Growing up, my grandmother was a knitter and a crocheter, and I always thought she was just crazy, and that's just something that old ladies did. But a few years ago, when Caleb really got into the whole knitting piece, I thought, I can crochet. So I started crocheting and really enjoyed it. And Caleb kept telling me, you need to learn how to knit, you're gonna love to knit. And I'm like, no, that's too detailed and too intricate, I can't do that. And 6 months ago, probably, I said, okay, I'll try. So I did, and I love it. And I knit every chance I get. I'm recently retired, so I get to spend a lot of time knitting when I want to.
Jealous.
So yeah, it's certain TV shows mean time to sit down and knit.
In what TV show?
Well, Bold and the Beautiful and Young and the Restless.
So I hate to break it to you, but you are your grandmother.
I know, I am. My grandmother used to watch As the World Turns while she knitted, so.
Crochet.
No, she did both.
Oh,
she did both, yeah.
Grandma Van Wy.
Grandma Van Wy, yep.
Gotcha.
Cool.
So, I know that you're probably making regular appearances with me But do you have any crochet? And so you wanted to save some of your stuff that you were going to show, but do you have any crochet backstock here?
Actually, no, I didn't bring any crochet with me.
You've seen the blanket
right.
that she made for me. She has several of her own that she'll show at some point. But why don't you show us your first knitting project?
Well, my very first knitting project, I'm not going to show you because...
Which one?
The blue one.
Bonnie.
Okay. I decided that I could probably knit a hat. So this is the hat that I started with. Caleb, I don't remember what yarn it is.
It is Madeline Tosh DK, and it's actually the remaining blue from my blanket.
Yeah, so...
in the denim color.
Yeah, so this is the hat that I did. I got the pattern off of Etsy, and Ravelry, sorry. So I couldn't tell you right now what it is, and this was a learning curve. I ripped out this ribbing many times, and it's not as even as I wish it would be, but
look at it every time.
Yeah, for a first project, I didn't think it was too bad.
She did very well for her first project.
And then I was hooked, and I said, I'm gonna do hats, and I'm just gonna keep making hats. I only have so many friends, so no, that's fine. I only have so many friends to give hats to, and I can, and we're in Kansas, and it's not super cold a lot. So except for today, but so I have hats to give away, but I've been enjoying hats. What I did as my second project, or shortly thereafter, was decided to make myself a hat that I knew I would wear. So this one is more of a stockinette hat, which I really enjoyed with a cool faux fur pom-pom. Here again, yarn.
Same leftover from my blanket, except that's the Miss Babs Yowza.
That shit crazy. Yeah. And there was enough left over that I could then branch off into a pair of fingerless gloves. And was pretty proud of myself when I could do these as well. And just very, very excited. And once I got to this point, I said, I think I can call myself a knitter. So this was kind of the turning point for me, that I am now officially a knitter. So I can now wear my hat and my matching fingerless gloves. Very proud of myself.
I am very proud of you as well.
So, okay, what else do you want to see? I then said, you know what, it's probably time to do a different kind of headwear. So I found a pattern for a headband. Here again, what I kept doing is I kept saying, Caleb, just give me your scraps. Just give me your scraps and let me play. So this is another scrap. This was also from your blanket, wasn't it? And the stitch that this was called was an English rib. An English rib. And I thought it was pretty cool, and it was very different. It was not done in the round, and all of the other things that I had done were in the round. So this was a new experience for me on a straight. And when I was showing Caleb, he's like, oh, this is brioche. You can do brioche. And I said, no, I can't. I can do English rib. And convinced me that it was basically the same thing.
It is the same thing.
Okay. Anyway, the little twist here comes at the very end. And super easy. Made 4 or 5 of these, I think, and have given most of them away, but loved those. So then I had gone with Caleb to Nashville to SSK last summer, and Caleb went to SSK and I went and did touristy stuff. But I got to spend at least one afternoon with the group and went to the marketplace. And in the marketplace, Caleb insisted that I purchase something. So this is a fingering weight called Bless Your Heart.
It's a gradient set from Leading Men Fiber Arts on their Showstopper base. Yeah,
and I loved it. I loved the colors, and it was like, what are you gonna do with it? I said, I don't know, but I love it, and I'll figure something out. So I bought 2 of these, thinking I was maybe gonna do a hat and gloves with it. Well, because we had just done brioche, I decided let's try real brioche, even though he says the other is
brioche in the round.
Brioche in the round. So this hat It's a fingering weight, and I held two together with this and
Mad Tosh Twist Sock, the one with nylon. That might be Twist Light in the Yoko colorway, which is beautiful. It's similar to Modern Fair Isle if you're familiar with that, but it's a natural with colored speckles.
Anyway, love the hat. Made several mistakes. Would try to fix the mistake myself, and then I would call Caleb and I would say, come home, I'll feed you, I'll give you dinner if you'll fix my mistake. So he did. I ended up doing about half of this hat.
You got to like the pink.
Yeah, I got about here, and then I was just gonna put it in timeout because it wasn't working for me. And Caleb needed something crocheted, so I made him a deal, and I crocheted some soap holders and washcloths and stuff for him, and he finished the brioche in my hat. I'll give brioche another try. Yeah. Just not yet.
That transition between burps and barks was a little convoluted.
Yeah. Once I get started on the row, I do fine. But in that transition piece, I would lose it a lot. So anyway, that's the brooch hat. And Caleb showed one on his podcast a while back.
Yeah, this is
Same
the
pattern.
Vanilla Fog hat by Andrew Mowry.
Yeah. Love the hat. Love. So soft, so squishy.
It's really pretty. I really like that hat.
Yeah. And now I have another set of these same colors. So I'm thinking doing the same brioche with mittens to match this.
Yeah.
Caleb may have to do it for me, but I'll see.
No.
I'll see. Anyway. All right. More?
Yeah.
More?
I mean,
okay.
What do you want to show?
Two more things that I've done, that are finished. When I decided I knew how to do hats, baby hat. I am not a grandma yet. Caleb has a twin brother who got married this summer, and I'm very ready to be a grandma. I don't know that they're ready to be parents, but I'm ready. So I decided I needed to do some baby things. So I made this baby hat here again, leftover yarn from a sweater.
Mm-hmm. Hedgehog fibers in the pink is cheeky and the purple is birthday cake.
And a cute little pink pom-pom, pink faux.
Did I ever show the baby layette set that we made?
I think you maybe showed a picture of it.
Did I?
If not, you need to show that.
I'll go back and watch and
see.
But that matches the baby set that we made.
Last thing as far as projects that are finished. The other night at knit night at the library for our knit group, I was looking at some books that the librarian had set out there and found this book and thought, oh my gosh, how cute. Okay. It's a whole book on monster knits for little monsters. They're all different. There's probably 15, 20 different hat styles for babies and toddlers. So decided, gosh, that would be fun. Let me see what I can do. So I pulled out a piece of just leftover old acrylic yarn, thinking I'll try it first, and did the bear. And this was the first that I'd ever done a cable. And I loved it. And
she did amazing.
Yeah, and thought that was really fun. So cabling, I know, is going to be in my near future as I do some more. So here's my bear. And of course, I loved the way that one finished up. So I decided, okay, I did the shark. And this one, oh, darn.
Barocco Ultra Wool.
Ultra Wool, yeah. Ultra Wool. And then this one, actually, I just finished today. As I had done this, when I was finishing the bear, I happened to be at a swim meet for my youngest son, and I was showing the people around me, or they were looking at the hat, and one of the guys said, you need to make, oh my gosh, I just thought I've lost his name. The Baby Yoda. And you need to make a Baby Yoda. Well, this is a pattern of an alien, And I thought, it kind of looks like a baby Yoda. So this one
has like the forehead furrows.
Yeah. See, and it's also got I'm kind of liking the whole cabling thing. Anyway, so I just finished this one today, my baby Yoda. What I'm really hoping to do is for next fall, maybe get some commissions on, catch up with some of my friends who are grandmas and say, I think you need some hats, and do some commission knitting for Christmas. So those are my finished projects that I wanted to share.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenge, like what's, as a new knitter, what are some of your challenges that you've had? What is something that you're looking forward to learning, and what is a word of encouragement that you have?
A word of encouragement that I have is stay with it. It gets easier, and I was pretty reluctant to try anything hard, and once I understood everything is a knit and purl. I mean, that's all it is it's a knit and purl. And it depends on what order you do it in, and yeah, so it's not as scary as I thought it would be. And you know, my probably a word of advice, it would be, you know, take it at your pace, and take it at your speed. And if you want to do little projects so that they don't take so long, like big sweaters, it's okay. You can do little projects. And if you want to do just cute things, that's okay. You can do cute things. If you want to do massive pieces of artwork, do that. Knitting is for you, and it's about you. And yeah, and make sure that you keep it that way.
Very good. Anything you're looking forward to trying?
I've got a couple of works in progress that I need to finish up. After I'm working on a 1.5 circle wrap that is
lovely.
I'd like to make it like mid-calf length. So it's gonna take me a while yet. I've got a good start, and I'll show you that sometime along the way. But that's the first big piece I've done. I'm looking forward to, after I've done some of these hats, I'm looking forward to doing more cabling and seeing what different cables look like, and how to do different cables, and how you can make that into a piece of art. So I expect there'll be some scarves and hats and things like that with some cabling coming up next.
I told her I think she needs to knit Hoki Locatelli's like coat, all over cabled coat. That's her next project, but she hasn't seen it yet. So.
Not that big. I will start with hats. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for
welcome.
Joining us for, what should this segment be called? A Bonnie break? Breaks with Bonnie.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, thank you.
All right. It was great to visit with you. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed that little interview with my mom. This is looking to be like a longer episode, probably my longest episode I've ever done. So I need to cut it off here. But again, I just want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you are finding comfort in your knitting, in your reading, in your social distancing. I know there are quite a few introverts. I mean, this is kind of what introverts around the world have been preparing for, right? I'm more of an extrovert with introverted tendencies, so it's a little bit harder for me. But anyway, I hope you all are doing well. I love you all so much, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.